Hello and welcome to the Autism, ADHD and Us 3 podcast with me, Jenny Lucas. We'll be talking all things neurodiversity, including late diagnosis, parenting and everything else that comes in between. This podcast is not intended to be diagnostic. I am not a doctor. These are our personal experiences, peppered with research and occasionally the experiences of others. The podcast is intended as a supportive guide through the experience of parenting neurodiverse children as a late diagnosed person, hopefully bringing some relatable stories and laughs along the way. Any relevant links will be in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome to this month's episode of Autism, ADHD and Us 3. If you're a returning listener, then welcome back. If this is your first time here, then welcome along. It's lovely to have you with us today. We are talking about productivity in this episode, and it's going to be an episode that's probably going to hit a little bit close to home, so apologies for that. We're talking about how in my own life productivity became the marker of whether I was doing enough, whether I was being enough, and whether I was enough as a person. And spoiler alert for all of you out there, productivity should not shape how worthy you are as a human being. Okay, it's a con, all right? But we're going to talk about that as we go through the episode today. So for a very long time, probably most of my working life, I measured myself on how much I achieved, how much I was able to do and cram into those 24 hours that we have in a day. My to-do list was like the holy grail. And especially during my teaching time, I had a notepad where I would have all of my to-dos all written down, all ticked off or not, and then the following week or month or whenever it was, not month, never went that long without writing a to-do list again, but every week or every couple of weeks I would rewrite the to-do list, and sometimes was just shoving things on the next week's to-do list that I hadn't managed to get ticked off in the last one. But because I had written it all down in a to-do list, it made me feel a little bit better. And then obviously when I ticked more of those things off, I felt like I was doing things, I was being productive. And if I didn't tick off enough stuff by the end of the week, I felt like I was failing at life. And in a job like teaching, when I was also a pastoral lead at the same time. So for a lot of my career, I had more than two hats on at a time. Sometimes the knowing that you haven't got those things ticked off means that, you know, life is going to be more challenging for you the following week. And then eventually, surprise, surprise, I burned out. And some of you will be aware of a little bit about my burnout story and how that has happened for me previously. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it today. If you've ever found yourself hustling just to feel like a good person, or asking yourself, if I'm not constantly doing something, do I even matter? Then this episode is the one for you, and please do listen through all the way to the end. Hopefully there'll be some nice little gems that you can take away from it. And I should also mention at this point, just as a reminder, that I am writing a book right now, which is due out in October of this year, 2025. And it's all about what happens in that first raw, tender, eye-opening year to 18 months or so post-diagnosis. And the topic we're talking about today in the podcast, this question of worth and productivity, is right in part of the book in terms of what you are going to get out of that when it is released on October. So if you want to know more about that, by the way, a little plug, I suppose. On my website, I have got the opportunity for you to sign up for the book waitlist if you want to know more about when the book's coming out and some little sort of behind the scenes about how it's going in terms of the writing process and what sort of other things are going to be in the book. Then just head along there and sign up for that, and you will be the first to know about when it comes out on the shelves to buy. So when productivity becomes a worthiness test, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're completely burned out, but you're still telling yourself that you're not doing enough? I am guilty of that and certainly have been. It's like you're running on empty and yet you're still trying to prove that you've got it all together. And if you're also a parent out there listening to this, as I know that many of you are, because this is what the podcast is kind of focused around, being a parent with AuDHD or having children who are also neurodiverse or neurodivergent, it is a very common theme. And I know this feeling in my bones, and it's something I've worked really hard on for the last
3 or 4 years to try and move away from this idea that worthiness and productivity go hand in hand. So when I was working in education and when I was a teacher in education, I was always switched on. For those like 5, 6, 7.5 week terms, it was go, 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 go all the time. And I've since looked back at that and thought it's a real kind of boom and bust cycle to be a part of. Like the intensity of term time and then the absolute collapse of the holidays. And obviously when you become a parent and you work in education, you don't really get the collapse part in the holidays anymore because you are doing your other job full time, which is being a parent to those young people who are either not old enough to be at school or who are also off school because it's their holidays too. So I'd be teaching all day, doing clubs, doing extracurricular activities, sometimes doing some marking, and then answering emails. When I was a pastoral lead, there would be emails would come in at all times of the day from parents about all kinds of different things. And I was exhausted and it still didn't feel like I was doing enough. I'd sit in meetings, sometimes barely holding it all together, particularly towards the end of my last full-time teaching role. And at home, I was short-tempered, distracted, disconnected, emotionally unavailable, praying for bedtime every day, whether it was a school day or a weekend or a holiday. And I hated how I was parenting. I hated how it felt. I hated how I knew I was making the children feel when I was in that space. And I always felt like I was constantly on the verge of failure, professionally, personally. It was a lot, juggling a lot. And it wasn't just emotional. When I hit the point of burnout, my skills regressed. I forgot how to do things. I remember before I ended up going off for some time from my last full-time job, I forgot how to put my hair in a ponytail. And I know that sounds like an absolutely ridiculous thing to say, and if you've never seen me with long hair before, then it will seem outrageous because I definitely don't need to put it in a ponytail now. But I remember getting out of the shower, drying my hair and forgetting what the sensation felt like, the muscle memory for how to pull my hair into a ponytail. I was beyond exhausted, absolutely knackered. And that wasn't the only thing that was just a sort of first example I could think of off the top of my head, was that something that was so routine and habitual in terms of muscle memory, I just was standing in front of the mirror thinking, I don't actually remember how to do this. And that was really scary. It was really scary. And if you've experienced any sort of skills regression at any point in your life, it's terrifying because you think, what the hell's wrong with me? Am I having a breakdown? Have I got Alzheimer's? Like, am I losing my actual mind? What is happening? It's terrifying. I couldn't hold more than one task at a time. I mean, remembering passwords, what a joke. And now I kind of attribute that to like getting a little bit older. Not old, let's be clear about that. But, you know, as you get older, sometimes it can be difficult to hold lots of things in your brain. And actually, this was before I realised about my own neurodivergence. So there's the whole ADHD struggling to hold many thoughts at the same time issue, which I didn't realise was an issue until I got diagnosed. For me, that's what it was. But I still was hanging on to that productivity equals worth. And also, for someone who's been in a full-time profession like that for so long, I still had the fear of the stigma of, what if I need time out? What if I need time off? What if I need to go and get signed off and have this time to recover? Like, what will that look like? When I come back, I'm putting all this extra pressure on my colleagues who are going to have to cover me. If I then ever go for any other job anywhere, I'm going to have to declare that absence and I'm going to have to explain it. And then it's like another tick box on a mental health form. Like, it's just, you have all these, if you're anything like me, you have all these like big thoughts. Big thoughts and a very tired mind about I'll just keep going, I'll just keep doing. Until I actually got to the point where I couldn't anymore and I had to hit what I called the big red button and go and get signed off and actually just face all of those fears that I was worried about in terms of what that would look like for my future. Was I ruining my future? Was I ruining my reputation? No, I wasn't. However, I digress, as I always do when I'm in a podcast. You can imagine what it was like to be in some of my lessons, can't you? The kids got me sidetracked. I was one of those teachers who was quite easily sidetracked. But this is what we don't often talk talk about enough how deeply that internalised ableism runs. Like the idea that I needed to have time to recover and time out of work was like appalling to me. It was mortifying. And the consequences of that, or what I perceived the consequences of that would be, were mortifying. And even as a neurodivergent woman, I punished myself for not being efficient. Didn't know I was neurodiverse at the time. Didn't know I was neurodivergent at the time, excuse me. I thought I just needed to be more efficient, more organised, more productive, and then it would all get back on track. That was a lie. That is not what I needed at the time. We have spent our lives performing in systems that were never built for us, and we believed the lie that our usefulness is our value. And this is what started to unravel for me, certainly, when I had my episode, my quite severe episode of burnout that kind of took me out of my teaching career. So I'm 4 years on now from that burnout. 4 years? Yeah, actually, just over 4 years now. And everything has changed in my life. I'm not cured. I'm not a productivity queen. I haven't mastered it, and I'm here to share my tips with you. However, I am no longer trying to prove that I deserve space in the world through what I do, through how much I earn, through what I contribute on a daily basis. That no longer defines who I am as a person. And that was really tricky, actually, when I left teaching and I knew that I couldn't go back to be a full-time in the classroom based teacher. I struggled to define who I was as a person, because teacher was how I defined myself as a person. It had been my career. It was what I did for so long, like a long 16 years up to that point, or thereabouts. And so often we ask people when we meet them, what do you do? Because it's like a way of, for me, it's a way of like understanding who someone is, how they work, where they fit in the world. And that is, I don't believe that's a good thing. I'd like to be able to change that about how I interact with other human beings. But it's like it's a symptom of how it's valued and how we see it as value in the world. Like what we do as a job contributes to who we are as a person, how valued we are. So when I lost that title for myself, it just added to the list of things that helped me feel really lost in life. But I started with really simple shifts to change my mindset around this. And one of the first things that I did was asking myself, what pace actually feels good for me in terms of working? And I did this really practically when I was signed off work with burnout. I had two lists. I had a list of things that I really enjoy about my job, and the things that I would love about my role, and there were lots, obviously. No one gets into teaching because they hate kids. Well, they shouldn't anyway. And then I had the other list was what would I not want to have in a future job role? That, like, what are the things in my job that I really don't like that I wouldn't want to then continue to do in something else? And for me, it was really simple things. Like, I've got a bladder issue, so the fact that I wanted to be in a job where I could go for a wee whenever I needed was massive. And that might not seem like anything to other people, but when you are stuck in a classroom for hours at a time without the ability to escape, it's torturous. It is torturous. So little things like the classics, being able to have a hot cup of tea, or go for a wee whenever I wanted, or plan my day around my energy levels, which is impossible when you're a teacher, because when you're in and you're on, that's it all the time. So what pace did I actually want to work at that felt good for me? And not what was like going to be impressive to other people or what was expected in a teaching job, but what felt right. And that was actually a really difficult question to answer, because at that time during burnout, I couldn't do anything. Like, I really struggled to do anything, many things. So I had to work with what I had at the time, and I had to slow everything right down, fighting every instinct in my body about, but the what ifs. It was like, I actually have to work with what I've got, and what I've got is not much. So that is where we started, and I had to start from there. I had to stop overcommitting to things, and I had to start saying no to things, even when it made me feel guilty, and that's a big one. And you'll see me talking about this a lot on social media if you follow me over there. Saying no and setting boundaries can be extremely alien to those of us who have been people pleasers for a long time. But When we start valuing ourselves and putting ourselves first and saying that is a priority, we have to say no to things. And we have to sit with that guilt. We have to live with it, and we have to work out where it's coming from and work through it so that it no longer has a hold over us in the long run. And I actually started to begin to listen to my body's cues instead of overriding them and ignoring them and being like, other people can push through, I can push through. I had to bin all that off and start actually listening to myself. And those little things were really, really important. I started to unpick all the ways that I'd equated being low maintenance as a person with being lovable. So, you know, I'm a great partner. I don't need anything. I don't ask for anything. Nobody has to tiptoe around me. Like, I can anticipate everybody's needs and make sure that they're met, and nobody ever has to worry about me. I'm good. That's not honest, and that is not a healthy way to live. And it's certainly not a healthy way to live for years and in the long run. So being productive and being worthy, I had to start unpick all of that as well. Being useful and being safe, they were like equated, like, oh, I can do this, I can be the helpful one, I can be the whatever, anticipatory one, I can meet everybody's needs, and then people will like me, and then I'll feel safe. Like there's a whole like massive bodies of work that you could do to unpick that. And when I work with clients one-to-one, those tend to be some of the main areas that we have to visit and unpick for every individual. It's very individual. And that process wasn't linear, and it still isn't. It's still ongoing. I'm still figuring it out as I go. But it's very powerful. And 4 years down the line, I am much further forward in my life with that than I was then. So now I still work a day job, but I work a day job where I'm working from home. I get to organise my time for the most part around me and the tasks that I've got to complete and my energy levels. I get to communicate with people in a way that I find good for my brain. There's no surprises, generally. There's no surprises. I get to wee whenever I want. I get to have a cup of tea whenever I want. I can stick the washing on and get some bits done at home whenever I want because I'm working from home. I'm not having to commute. And if there are days where I don't feel like I've got the energy to communicate with other human beings, I don't have to communicate with other human beings, or I have to speak to them, certainly, which has been really, really, like, I couldn't be more grateful for having had that opportunity to work in a role where I'm working from home and being able to do those things for myself. Out with that, I also run my business. I've got my coaching business, of course, and I run that in a way that feels energetically aligned for me. I have coaching availability that works for me and whatever else is going on in my world. And all of the other little things that go into running a business behind the scenes, I plan that according to the time and the energy that I have got available to me in any given moment when I'm putting things together. And if things change, I'm learning to be okay with the fact that sometimes things change and things don't always go to plan. That's hard, but I can be okay with it. I parent more gently. I am more aware of my own emotional state, and I'm more aware consciously that my children are not there to regulate me. They are not my emotional regulation tools. It is not their job to make sure that I'm happy and that I'm settled and that I'm regulated. That is my job to teach them how to do that for themselves. And understanding and recognising that has been huge. And also understanding and recognising that I don't always get it right has been huge. And having those conversations with the kids when I haven't got it right and helping them understand what's going on for me, why a thing has happened the way it's happened. And crucially, that it's nothing to do with them. It's not their fault. They're allowed to show up in the world however they are experiencing the world at that time. And we all work and coexist together around that. And I rest without guilt most of the time. Not all the time, but about 85% of the time now when I'm resting, I can be doing that comfortably and without feeling like people are looking at me. I should be doing stuff. I should be resting in a different way. Like, I have very much come to terms with that now. And when my body says stop, I listen. When it's safe to do so, and I don't have to be a parent, obviously. Sometimes we have to push through as a parent when we would rather not. But I have more opportunity in my life now where I get to stop and listen to my body and say, actually, I'm not going to do that thing today, or I'm not going to do the thing the way I thought it was going to do the thing, or whatever. And this is transformational. It is hugely transformative. And it's one of the reasons why I'm writing my book, because I want every woman who's ever thought that she had to earn her right to rest to know that she doesn't. You do not need to earn rest. Rest needs to happen so that you can be a functioning human being. And the amount of rest that you get is not determined by how hard you've worked for that rest. And that is something you will also hear me talking about a lot on social media, because it is hugely important. Okay, so if you're interested in that book, it's another little plug. The waitlist is open if you would like to go and sign up for that. And the book walks you through the first year, 18 months of what life after diagnosis or self-discovery can really look like. And it ain't all roses and rainbows and lollipops. Let me tell you that. We've got the messy middle, the quiet wins, and the reclaiming of self-trust. Okay? And I'm here to say that there is a life beyond burnout. If you're in it and you're thinking, Jenny, how do I get out of this? I have got kids and a job and a house and debts and stuff. How do I ever find my way out of this? I promise you, I was there. And I promise you that it is possible, but it's slow, small steps, one at a time, not overwhelming ourselves with how we make things better overnight, okay? You don't have to hustle to get out of burnout. It's like the opposite of that, okay? So, we're almost at the end of the episode today. It's a bit of a shorter one this month, but I hope that it has been packed full of useful information for you, and that you have found it valuable, and that you have felt some validation through this as well. If you have found yourself nodding along during this episode, if you are tired of over-functioning, tired of equating busy with value, and tired of the guilt that shows up every time you try to rest, that little voice in the back of your head, you should be doing something, then I want to invite you to take my free confidence quiz. I'm going to put all the links to all of the things that I've mentioned already in today's episode in the show notes. It's free and it's quick, and it will give you some instant clarity on what is getting in the way of unhooking your self-worth from performance, and maybe more importantly, where those voices are coming from in terms of that self-confidence, what's blocking you from showing up and making these decisions for yourself, what's stopping you resting without feeling guilty. Okay, so there will be a link for that in the show notes. And excitingly for me and you, if you're ready to be supported through the shift and you want to take this a little bit further and you can't wait for October for the book to come out, I've actually got only two one-to-one coaching spots open for June. And as well, if you're listening today on the 1st of June, you've got a good chance of getting one of those if you're interested. Get in contact with me. All my contact details will be in the show notes. You can ping me an email. You can DM me on social media. If you're curious about it and you just want to find out more and you think, well, I'm not sure if I want to commit yet, but I want to know more about this, I have actually got 15-minute free little Zoom call, Google Meet call that you can book into to have a conversation with me. Absolutely no hard sell. I hate it. It gives me the ick. I don't want to be that kind of person. I hate it when people try to do it to me. It's literally a little 15-minute catch up to see what it is that you want to work through in your particular situation, and whether I can help you with that, because I might be good, but I can't help everybody with everything. So it's worth having a conversation beforehand just to see whether we are actually the right fit and whether it's the sort of thing that you want to commit to. And if you don't, it'll have been a lovely little chat with you on Google. There's absolutely no hard sell, I promise. So if you're interested in that, there is a link for that as well, to click on that. You don't need to email me about it. You can just book one of them in. And of course, the book is coming in October. I've mentioned that a couple of times now. Here it is again. And if this episode has resonated and you want to read that book when it comes out, then get on the wait list. It is there for you, okay? And if you're not already, sign up for my newsletter. It is weekly and it gives you lots of little bite-sized things that you can do to help reframe your inner voice, and to help build that confidence and take back control of your life, because it is your life that you're living, okay? You are not your output. You never were. You are worthy. Full stop. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.